Hello and welcome to the Choralosophy Podcast, a weekly podcast whose mission is multifaceted. Each week when you tune in, you will find episodes that question best practices, challenge music education dogma, facilitate conversations about touchy topics, demonstrate pedagogies, and conversations where colleagues learn from each other. This is episode 232, Choral Music in Chile with Javiera Lara Salvador. The U.S. is a cultural exporter, and oftentimes we don't do a great job of importing. I find it fascinating and valuable as an American to seek out stories from around the world about what life is like, about what people's jobs are like, and as an American choir director, it is easy for me to assume that the way choral music functions in our culture here in the United States is normal. So let's broaden our horizons by talking with Javiera, a talented choral conductor from Chile who brings valuable insights about choral music and education in her country. Javiera walks me through her journey, beginning with the discovery of singing in school, continuing into her studies in choral conducting in Santiago. She shares how choral music education in Chile offers unique pathways for students and for young adults, though opportunities such as full-time choir teaching, like I have in the United States, remain limited there to non-existent. We also explored the vibrant choral scene in Santiago, including community choirs supported by local municipalities, and the fascinating repertoire that blends traditional Chilean music with influences from around the world. Our discussion touched on the parallels and contrasts between music education in Chile and the United States, highlighting the privilege of access to music education and the universal challenges faced by choir directors. Javiera even shared her enthusiasm for Latin American composers like Modesta Bor and Cesar Alejandro Carrillo, sparking a discussion about the joy of integrating diverse musical traditions and at pushing boundaries of the art form. So tune in and have your thinking stimulated and challenged, then weigh in yourself with your related ideas or questions, and I really do want to know what you think over on the Choralosophers Facebook group or at Substack, choralosophy.substack.com. Are you a director new to the profession? Or are you a seasoned director who is in a new place? One of my favorite tips for generating interest in the program and to instill buy-in is to plan a trip. There are so many options. You can go to Orlando, you can go to Ireland, or you can perform in a parade or a theme park. You can even take the stage at Carnegie Hall in New York. Wherever you end up, not only will your current crew look forward to the trip, but younger students will count the days until it's their turn to go. If you have no idea where to start, connect with Kaleidoscope Adventures at mykatrip.com. Attention event organizers. Ludus is here to take your events to the next level. Imagine a ticketing platform that's not just about tickets. Ludus offers marketing, fundraising, and even volunteer management, all in one place. It's time to streamline your event management process and impress your attendees. Join the Ludus family today and unlock endless possibilities for your events. Go to ludus.com/choralosophy and try it out now, free to you. And if you use that link, you'll get the marketing feature free to your customers as well. How much do you normally pay for professional development as an educator? Whatever that number is for you. Now imagine you could chip in here for $3 a month and make a real difference in my ability to continue doing this show into year 2025 and beyond. So you can go to patreon.com/choralosophy to sign up there for as little as $3 a month, or you can just upgrade your free Substack subscription to a paid Substack subscription. Either way, the money goes to the same place for the same purpose. The producers and inner circle at Patreon are Venture Studios, Brian Long, Angie Schilling, Danelle Eckert, David Kowalczyk, Kyle Peterson, Max Jackson, Michael Herron, and Steve and Kathy Kakacek. All right, everyone, I am here with Javiera Salvador from Santiago, Chile. And I am really excited. Yes, I'm getting my Spanish rehearsal already. I'm really excited to have Javi on the show to talk about what choral music is like in her country. So, Javiera, welcome.
Thank you, Chris. Nice to meet you. And thank you for having me today, for inviting me. I feel really honored to be here talking to you.
Well, good. And I'm hoping that some choral musicians, people who love choral music in my country and people who love choral music in your country are able to meet and learn more about each other through this conversation. So that's why I had you on. So why don't you tell us more about you? Where did this love for choral music come from? And what's a little bit about your background that we might find interesting?
Okay. Long story short, I started singing classes as I was in school. And my singing teacher was also a choral director. So she invited me to one of her choirs, and I just fell in love. It's it's impossible to get away once you're in this, and when you love to sing, and when you get to know so many musicians and singers and repertoire. So that's where all began. I'm not from Santiago. I was born in Puerto Montt. That's a small city in the south. So as I realized how much I loved to sing and to and the choral music, I decided to move to Santiago to study music and choral conducting.
So in Chile, if you study choral conducting and music in university, is it a degree? Is it a degree program specifically about choral music, or do you study a broader range of music and then you choose to focus on choral music? How does it work there where you live?
In my case, it's more like the second option. I studied a bachelor degree in music theory, and then you can choose between being a music theory teacher, specialized music theory teacher, or choral conductor. And I chose choral conducting. But there are also another universities that offer the career just as an interpretative degree in choral conducting.
Okay, interesting. Now, are there
are the two options.
Okay, yeah, right, sure. Now, do you have the options, like in the United States, we can get a degree in choral music, a variety of different degrees in choral music, and then we can go on and get more advanced degrees afterwards, like a master's degree and a doctoral degree. Is the setup basically the same in Chile?
Yes, we can have also a master's degree here, but I guess there's only one master's program in choral conducting in the same university where I studied. And there was another program, which was the one I made in another university, but it exists no more. They closed it. But you can't do, for example, a PhD or something in choral music.
Mm-hmm. Now, how would you describe jobs for choral directors in Chile? Are there choral teachers and are there choral classes in schools, or is it just general singing? So where do most people that do choral music in Chile, where do they make their living? How do they earn income, and what do they do?
Well, the first thing I want you to know is that we are very few people who are choral conductors in Chile. We are very few. I was the only one in my generation in university. The next generation was 2 people. I don't know. We are very few choral conductors. And the most of us work in amateur choirs, like community choirs, not that much in schools. And the least of us work in professional choirs. There are like 3 or 4 professional choirs in the whole country. So the least of us work in that ambience. And regarding schools and choir teaching in schools, the music teachers used to do that. The same teacher that teaches the music lesson uses to do the choir. And there are some music teachers that do postgraduate programs or specializations in choral conducting, but not the most of us teach in schools.
Yeah. Okay, that's really interesting. Earlier, you said, when you were introducing yourself, you said that you took a singing class when you were young and fell in love with it. How young were you? Like, what age was that, approximately?
When I began classes, I was 13, maybe.
Okay. Now, was that your first music education, or did you have other music in school that was leading up before this singing class?
I was a privileged child, and I went to a very good school here in Chile, a private school. So I had musical lessons from the first grade, and it was my music teacher who discovered that I could sing. I sang all day since I was a baby. So I remember I was in third grade, and she approached and said, "Sing again. Come to the music room on the break, so we can sing a little bit more." So that's where everything began.
Right.
And she suggested that I took lessons, and that these lessons were private lessons, not in the school. We didn't have any other music activities at the school. But as I said, I was privileged because in Chile the music lesson is not mandatory. The schools doesn't have to have a music teacher. They can teach all the school, and the people wouldn't have any music lesson at all.
Wow.
So it's tough.
Yeah. So what proportion or percentage would you say of kids in Chile receive no music education at all?
I really don't know the proportion, but I would say that in the secondary school, it can be half of them.
Huh. Okay, that's interesting because in the United States, music teachers, of course, there are 20,000 members of the American Choral Directors Association, for example. So we have a large community. In fact, I can make a pretty good living just teaching choirs like that. I do nothing else other than teach choirs.
Lovely.
Yeah,
That's a dream.
and yet it is, and yet we the American music teachers love to complain that we don't get enough support and we don't have enough of this. And that's why I'm interested in what it's like for you in your country, because it sounds like doing what I do for a living, for example, would be very rare, if not exist there at all. Which is I teach 14-year-olds through 18-year-olds how to sing in choir, and that's all I teach. Does that even exist in your country?
I think it's very, very rare in my country. Very, very rare. I can say it's non-existent.
Okay.
Because I think there can be some colleague that has this luck.
Right.
But most of us have different amateur choirs and children choirs, and also give private lessons or work half time in a school as music teacher and the other half time as choral director. And me myself, I work half time in the university as a lecturer, and the rest of the time I work in choirs. But it's rare to have a full-time choir teaching job here.
Yeah, that's interesting. Now, when you teach at the university, when you lecture, what do you teach?
I teach choral conducting and choir to the students that are at music teaching career, and also those who are studying to be a choral director.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. Now, let's say, since I teach 14 to 18-year-olds mostly, if a student in your country were 14 to 18 years old and they wanted to sing in a choir, it would probably be a community, like children's or youth choir. Is that right?
Yes. At least in Santiago, there are a few of them. There's a choir that's from the FOHI. It's our foundation. It's like the orchestral foundation for youth and children.
Okay.
And there are 2 choirs there. They can apply, and they get also some how do you say, beca? It's like well, I knew that word. I'm searching here.
Yeah, no worries.
Do you know what it is? A scholarship. They get some scholarship.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. They apply to the choir and they get some scholarship to be there. They have 2 choirs, the children's choir and the youth choir.
Okay. But they definitely. So so if they don't, do they all get scholarships, or do some kids just get they're privileged or more privileged and their parents can pay for them to go do this? But if they're not, if they can't pay or they don't get a scholarship, are they out of luck?
In this context, in this foundation, I don't know if foundation is the word. We call it fundación, but
yeah, foundation.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
They do get scholarships, but there are another choirs also. They can join. Mostly in some schools that do have choir, or some community choirs that are mostly free, because they have the support from the district, from the different districts.
So do you mean government support?
It's not directly government support. It's like, I don't know how to say, the municipality, the different municipalities.
Okay, so like cities.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
In Santiago, we have many different municipalities because it's huge metropolitan region. So the different municipalities have cultural corporations, and they manage to have choirs. I work in one of those. And the other cities across the country also have choirs. That's the choir where I began to sing, indeed, in Puerto Montt. It belonged to the municipality of the city.
Interesting. What about churches? Are church choirs common there?
Yes, they are common, but how can I explain the difference between our church choirs and yours?
Okay.
There are some big church choirs that work more sacred, traditional choral music, but the most are small choirs that are not only voices. They have also a small ensemble that comes with guitar, with like more traditional Latin American or Chilean music, it's a different style of singing. It's a different approach, and not all of them have a choral director as
I see.
a leader.
Uh-huh. Yep. Choir teachers, make sure you head over to Sheet Music Plus and scope out the library of choral music, band music, orchestral music, teaching resources, textbooks, basically anything that you could possibly need for your class. Go to sheetmusicplus.com and add that to your rotation of places to check to find resources for your classroom. Yeah, we have a lot of that in the United States as well, only instead of the folk music of Chile, we would have a lot of groups that we call them praise bands here. But
More or less.
Yeah, it's so like more of the local style of music.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just a choir; it's a group of people, and not a huge choir,
right?
Doing sacred vocal music. It's not that.
Now, so since you mentioned traditional choral music in the church setting, in many of these community groups and school or university groups, what does traditional music or traditional choral music mean to you in your country? What types of repertoire? What composers? Are we singing a lot of the same stuff, or what do you think?
I think we are very European influenced music ambience. So from Palestrina, Lasso, Mozart, Handel, that's what we understand as traditional choral music. But yes, I think there's choral standards that are the same all over the world, I guess.
Yeah, right. Now, would you say that those traditional choral standards are the most common type of repertoire that choirs there will sing, or is there a robust or common love of modern composers and living choral music composers as well, or is Chile very, very traditional, or is it a mix of both?
It is a mix of both, because there's also a huge movement of choral arrangers and arrangements here. It depends on the choir, and it depends also on the liking of the director and the community and the singers, which repertoire you will be doing. And Chile is very traditional about it in these dates, holidays and Christmas and everything. We are doing full of Messiah. I don't know. It's very traditional repertoire, but we have also another movement. It's really huge of arrangements from traditional music, traditional Chilean music, Latin American music, popular music arrangements, music in Spanish, so that there's a mix of everything.
Interesting. Okay, so so a mix of everything, meaning choral standards from Europe, popular arrangements in Spanish. I'm assuming like music that's popular locally, or would you say music that's like globally popular? Are you doing Spanish arrangements of Taylor Swift, or how would you describe that?
Mostly popular locally.
Right. Okay.
Like folk music and pop music, but it depends on the choir in reality.
Okay. What about the idea of finding choral music from a variety of countries around the world? Is that a big focus of choirs there in Chile? Like singing in many languages, for example.
Yes, it also depends a lot on the director and the context, but at least from me, speaking from my point of view, that's really important. I also try to lessen the fear of singing in a language you don't speak. You can sing in any language if you manage to teach the phonetics, and there's also joy in singing, and to achieve it, to sing something you can't really speak, and I think it opens the minds of the singers, the choralists.
Yeah.
And we are very fond in Chile of different rhythms, and as we are so far away from everything, and as we are also a very small country, we are 18 million of people and 8 million here in Santiago. We need to lend repertoires from everywhere else. We do many repertoire from other countries, other Latin American countries, and also plenty of music from Europe. As said, we are very traditional in our music education, but also we love, for example, to do music from Africa or from Estonia. And we are always looking outside, since we don't have that, we don't have plenty of choral composers, for example.
Yeah.
We don't have plenty of creations. So we are always looking for new repertoire, different rhythms, different things.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Who are some of your favorite composers from outside of your country? Who are some of your favorites?
That's a really tough question.
I know, I'm terrible.
I can choose.
Or you could say, what are you working on right now?
What I prefer to do with my choir, with my ensemble. I love impressionism, so the French music I love. For me, Fauré, Debussy, Saint-Saëns, Ravel. I love this repertoire. I also like very much some composers from Venezuela. I would mention Modesta Bor. She was a really, really talented composer. I don't know. I also like very much Velio Tormis, who's renowned now, like more contemporary. Morten Loritzen.
Yeah.
Mentioned some of them.
Do you know? I'm fairly sure he's from Venezuela. Do you know composer César Carrillo?
Of course, César Alejandro Carrillo. He's coming here in January. He's doing some workshops here.
I'm a huge fan of his music.
We love him.
I love his music. I've had several conversations with him as well over the years, because I have a professional group here in Kansas City, and we've done a lot of his stuff over the years, and it's just beautiful. It's a different musical language, so to speak, than what a lot of American composers write.
Yes.
It's very interesting. What I'm really interested in too is that in your country, I wonder, because the choral music community is so small, I wonder if you ever have anyone who's kind of looking over your shoulder and bothering you about the music you choose or don't choose. Do you ever feel that kind of like, I hope I'm choosing the right music because I wonder what my colleagues will think of me? Do you ever feel that where you are?
I think there are some colleagues that feel that. I used to feel that too, but I think that in time, when you realize that your choir enjoys what they're doing, it's fine. I always try to do new things, to do premieres, or to ask for new arrangements, because I resist that we always perform the same music. So I think that's the pressure I feel myself. I don't know if there's someone bothering me about that. I bother me myself
Right.
about that. But I think that it depends on the context, and what colleagues you choose to surround yourself with. If there's this criticism, or I don't know, judgment.
Yeah, judgment, I think, is the word I would use. Now, is there a professional organization of choral musicians in your country? And do you have an association?
Of choral singers, no.
Or
Of
conductors?
choral conductors, we started one a few years ago, but it's been a slow process.
Yeah.
Slow
Uh-huh.
process to get to really make things happen. It exists, but we are very few, and it isn't like everyone aware of the existence.
Right.
And the most powerful and old organizations are from choirs, like the Choral Latin American Choral Association, and the Federation of Choirs. These two organizations are like the most important here,
Okay.
and the oldest.
But are those, and now I'm assuming, are those larger than just Chile? Those incorporate musicians from many countries, or is it just in your country?
The first one is called ALAC, Latin American Association,
Uh-huh.
and it involves also organizations from Argentina, Peru, etc. And the other one is just from our country, but that's the Federation, the National Federation of Choirs.
I see.
The
Okay.
choirs that want to belong, they have the membership.
Yeah. That's interesting. Now, it's okay if you don't know the answer to this question, but does the Latin American one, does it extend as far north as, like, say, Mexico, or is it just South America?
I think it's just South America.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I was just curious. I was just
Not sure. I'm not sure though.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. I was just curious. So that's really interesting. And I think if it's okay, we kind of go one more direction with our conversation, which is just for you to get a chance to share a little bit about the projects either that you've worked on in your career that you're the most excited about, the things that you've, like, maybe I would call them in English, I would call them a mountaintop experience. Like your favorite musical experiences that you've gotten to do as a conductor, and or if you would share something in the future that you're really excited that you get to do, or both.
Okay, I have many.
Okay, great.
I have many, to share. The first one, and I cannot not mention it. It's my project, my ensemble. We are celebrating this year 10 years of existence, and I feel really proud of us because we are absolutely independent. It's an ensemble that we have premiered lots of difficult music, and we have no support, no economical support. We work just for the music, for the love of music. So I feel really proud of it, and it's been really, really enriching. Does this word exist?
Yes. Uh-huh.
It's been really enriching for me as conductor to lead this group, and I feel really thankful also to have been able to perform and to rehearse and premiere so much music. So different types of music styles to record. So that's really important to me, and I hope we can continue.
Yeah.
So that's number one. Number two is one of my primary jobs here. That's a community choir that functions in one of the biggest municipalities or cities here in Santiago. That's called Voces de Vitacura, Vitacura's Voices. And that's such a beautiful project because it's a choir that's fully integrated by neighbors of the city. And we have children from 5 years old to a really old lady. I love her. And she is 93 years old. So it's a huge community choir, like 230 people. We do a huge concert every year.
Wow.
And we have a team, a choral directors team to work with such an amount of people that are all amateurs.
Mm-hmm.
They don't read music. They have no experience. There are some of them which have experience, but the most of them are totally newbies in choir singing and music reading and everything. So it's a mountaintop experience, achieving the concert every year, and I really love this job, and to me it's really important of my career to be able to share the joy of singing with others, and I really think in that job I can transmit that, and I'm really happy to do that job. It's a really, really beautiful project, like a social and musical project.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. What do you have any mountaintop repertoire that you've done in your career? Like a piece of music that you that really sticks out in your memory of your conducting life?
Yes. When you mentioned it, I immediately recalled a piece that was called Rapsodia para coro y cuarteto de saxofones. It's a rhapsody for choir and sax quartet.
Interesting.
That is from an Argentinian composer, Jacobo Fischer. We premiered it at a festival here, a contemporary music festival, a few years ago. And it was like in the line between atonal and contemporary, and there's a lot of counterpoint, chromatic passages. It was really difficult to curse it, and we made it. And the piece is really, really nice, really beautiful, interesting. It was a challenge to do it, but I always remember it. It was like, wow, we made it.
Yeah, I've been thinking recently that there's not enough choral music with saxophone.
Yes, we actually have in October have finished a project. We won a project in the university to record all the pieces we have premiered with this ensemble, like sax quartet with choir, with ensemble, vocal ensemble. And we have recorded, I guess, 6 different pieces from Latin American composers.
Mm-hmm.
And we finished that project last October, and we are waiting for the post-production and the edition stage of the project, because there aren't many pieces with that mixture between choir and sax, and it's really interesting.
It is. This last summer, I got to do. There's a Palestrina with saxophone.
Wow!
Which I know, and it was really interesting. And it's actually the Palestrina Sicut Cervus, but with saxophone in a jazz style, written in to be played between. So basically, the arranger took the motet and separated it out, and so you finish a couple phrases, and then the choir simply sustains their pitch while the saxophone plays this beautiful jazz style solo. It's for soprano saxophone, and then the choir resumes the motet, and then that happens 2 or 3 times throughout. So you, instead of the 4.5 minutes of the motet, it's like 7 minutes long, but it's gorgeous. I can tag you on Instagram on a video. I've got some.
Please.
Yeah,
I would love to hear it.
Yeah, beautiful. And if you like saxophone and choir, it would be a good one. Yeah, right. It's so cool, and it's so interesting to hear your stories about the ways that choral music exists for you in your country, because I had a suspicion in reaching out to you that I would learn that the way choral music exists in my world is very different than it exists in yours. And because I find myself having to explain to my students a lot that they should not be taking for granted the fact that they get on a bus from their house and for free just sing in a choir every day as part of their school. And because, of course, they gripe, they complain, they like, oh, why do I have to work so hard? And I'm like, a lot of kids around the world in many places don't get to do this unless they have money. And so thoughts about that, am I crazy for reminding my spoiled teenagers that they...
You are not.
Okay.
Not at all. We also tell the same thing to our students. They have the privilege to be in a choir. They have the privilege to be in a university studying music, because there are very few places where you can do this. Mm-hmm. And here there's a huge school choirs movement and festivals, but they are only from those schools that care about music.
Yeah. Right.
And as it is not mandatory, there are many children that would love to sing, would love to have music lessons, would love to belong to a choir, and they have no possibility because their school doesn't have a music teacher. What to say, a choral director?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a tragedy, and I'm sure. Just looking around the world, you could find places that are less privileged than where I live, but also less privileged than where you live. I mean, you can always look and find someone who has it worse than you do, but at the same time, it's still worthwhile for us to fight and make our own situations better, and advocate for our own children, so to speak.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, Javiera, this has been really, really interesting and really fun. And I can leave you with the final word. Maybe leave us with some choirs that American choir people should look up online as being like, here are some really good choirs that exist here in our country. You should go check them out.
Okay. I highly recommend Iñiz, Camerata Vocal Iñiz. It's like IGNIS on Spotify, YouTube, etc. I also highly recommend it's like a chamber choir. It's okay. Camera.
Yep. We use that. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Chamber choir from Copiapó, because there's a huge musical school in Copiapó. It's a city in the north of a country that has brought many good singers to the world. They have really, really good choir. There's also the Coro de Madrigalistas de Viña del Mar. It's like the madrigalists of Viña del Mar.
Yeah. Well, that's
Those
awesome.
three
So,
you can find on YouTube and Spotify. I don't know.
right. Yeah, no, that's great. And how about after we sign off, I will follow up with email and you can maybe put those down for me again and I can put links. I can find links and put them in my show notes.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. I can share plenty more as I don't know how to pronounce the names in English.
I understand. You're doing fantastic job with the English, by the way. It's your English is a lot better than my Spanish.
Oh, thank you very much.
Well, awesome. Javiera, this has been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed getting to know you and speaking with you. Thank you so much for spending time with me.
Thanks to you, Chris. It's been really, really fun. And I hope the interview and the conversation turns out well. And I hope I didn't say some nonsense that I regret.
No, I think you did a great job. Thank you so much for sticking around to the end of a conversation. If you are still hearing my voice, that means you're one of the MVPs, one of the diehards, one of the real ones, as the kids say. So if you are willing on the way out to check out a few different ways that you can help me continue to make this show high quality. One, use the promo code. That's the biggest one at Sight Reading Factory, at mymusicfolders.com, at mychoirropes.com, at graphitepublishing.com, and endeavormusicpublishing.com. All of those take the Choralosophy checkout code, and of course now the newest one is 3-Minute Theory. You can get a 15% discount when you enter Choralosophy at checkout there. And of course, going to Apple Podcasts and leaving a positive review is very helpful there, and sharing the episodes to your colleagues in real life and on social media. All of those things are incredibly helpful and allow me to continue to create this resource for you. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time.